आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् निराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। We regret this delay which happened because of some technical difficulties at this end. We plunge now to the topic chosen in the second class on Chandogya Upanishad. We are going to take an overview of the sixth chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. The sixth chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad perhaps is that portion of the Chandogya Upanishad which is studied the most, having some 66 mantras spread over 16 khanda or sections. This Shashtaha Adhyaya of Chandogya Upanishad is all the more known for the great statement Tattvamasi that appears 9 times in 9 khandas. From the 8th khanda or section till the last section, 16th khanda. Every khanda has, with the different thought development, the great statement Tattvamasi coming at the end. Tat, the supreme truth, call it God, and call it the inner truth of the entire universe. Tvam asi, you are that. You are no different from the truth of the universe. This Advaita Tattva, Tat Tvam Asi, is conveyed 9 times in this Chandogya. I must say that the 7th and 8th chapters are also studied in a lot of study circles, in ashrams, at places of learning. Whereas the first 5 chapters are not so much gone into, because the first 5 chapters have more upasanas, which have over the thousands of years become less in use by the generations. Their value does not become less, but even we, for example, in this new millennium, in this 21st century, are not in a position to understand and appreciate those upasanas. Not because of any shortcoming in them, but because of our much less exposure to Vedic terminology. In modern times, hardly any of us is into those karma and upasanas. We are not familiar with very many concepts and prayogas. Prayoga meaning gesture, action, something to be done when to stand up, when to sit down, when to do a pradakshina, when to you know, do particular gestures. The upasanas very many times have certain steps, and these are not so common, not commonly known in modern times. Having said it, I must say, modern times, as regards purification of the mind, people rather go for Shiva Bhakti, Rama Bhakti, Devi Bhakti. There is the worship of Ishta Devata. We go to temples, we keep certain Deva Rupa, that is God form, at our own altar, at our home, and try to concentrate. That is the modern Vasana. But one more time I would say, among the chapters 6, 7, and 8, chapter 6 is studied 10 times more, going by number of places where it is taken up. So in this brief session, having lost some time already because of technical issues, I would like to give a bird's eye view of this chapter 6. The chapter 6 opens with the story of Shvetaketu and Uddalaka. Uddalaka is a very wise sage. Probably he himself was Brahmanishta. But as the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. If not contempt, familiarity breeds a certain indifference. What will my father teach me? I know him. So the son tends to look at his own father uh, without full understanding of the latter's greatness. So Uddalaka, the father, sends Svetaketu to a distant Gurukula, and this boy goes, spends 12 years over there, comes back, and was looking proud. The father notices some air around Svetaketu, and there is a humorous piece at the beginning. The father says, "What is this? You look very proud." And the son gets a bit embarrassed at that comment. Then the father asks, "You seem to have studied a lot, but did you study that vidya, that wisdom, where knowing one knows all?" I must say that is the first substantial teaching in the 6th chapter, and so much quoted by Vedanta teachers everywhere. What is that? When the boy confesses, "I don't know that wisdom, whereby knowing one thing, one knows everything." The father says, "You know, by knowing metal, you know things made of metal. By knowing gold, you know things made of gold. By knowing clay, you know things made of clay." For transactional purpose, a pot made of clay is different from a plate made of clay, which is again different from a doll made of clay. But from a little higher point of view, all of them are clay only. If you know clay, you know everything made of clay. Giving certain simple examples, Uddalaka makes a very powerful statement. "Oh, my dear son, this entire universe of names and forms, of personalities, of objects, of places, of colors, of sounds, etc., are all superficially different. Superficially, some are high, some are low, some are big, some are small, some are worthy, some are unworthy, some are virtuous, some are sinners. There is so much diversity. on the surface. But for a Brahmajnani who penetrates in his vision to depths of existence, everything is one. On the transactional plane, there is diversity. But paramarthataha, from a spiritual point of view, all are one. That Uddalaka puts in this particular section of the Vedic literature the famous statement, Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam mrittika ityeva satyam. Mrittika is clay. Clay alone is true. Mrittika iti eva satyam. Then somewhere you may call clay a part. That is Vacha Arambanam. Vak Arambanam. For the sake of saying. For the sake of saying, you call clay at another place a pitcher, etc. Therefore, as you and I get ready for deep contemplation upon Brahma, the very first khanda can empower us for amazing meditation. Hold this revelation by Uddalaka in your mind. Vacharambanam vikaro namadeya. That means all vikaras, all modifications are a mere matter of speaking. Go beneath the surface, mrittika eva satyam. In the theme proper, Brahma alone is the truth. All of you have studied Bhagavad Gita, where it is said, a Gnani, an enlightened one, looks at a wide range of entities equally. Samadarshina, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavihastini, Shunicha Ivashvapa Kecha, Pandita Samadarshinaha. It's a powerful shloka. Samaloshta Kanchanaha is another expression from the Gita. A lump of clay, a stone, and gold are all the same for a wise lady, a wise man. That is all a upshot of the Shruti Chandogya statement. Pratyaka ityeva satyam. Brahma ityeva satyam. Brahma eva satyam. Tadanyat sarvam vikaraha namadeyam vacha arambanam. For the sake of saying. And it has some value on transactional level. But you and I can rise above transactions. On a certain level, yes, we have lost money. But on a deeper sense of self-knowledge, I have not lost anything, I have not gained anything, I remain as free as ever. That is a wonderful teaching. In the very first khanda, there are 16 khandas. The very first khanda uplifts our spirits. The second khanda, yet another powerful statement, quoted on so many Vedanta platforms, is given. Uddalaka says, Sadeva Soumya Idamagra Asi. Pure existence alone was, and by implication, pure existence, Sat, alone was, is, and will be. Rest of it is all play of the mind. It would not be exaggeration, or it would not be false to say that essential Vedanta is about rising above the mind, not to fall a prey to the tricks of the mind, to the play of the mind, to the vagaries of the mind. As the lady saint Vimala Thakar said, the difference between unwise people and wise people is, in the case of unwise people, mind uses them. in the case of wise people, they use the mind. When we become adept in Brahma we will be using the mind as a tool without allowing the mind to confuse us, to baffle us, to topple us, to toss us around with its mischievous movements. Sadeva Saumya Idamagra Asi. Therefore, trust and believe and nurture and meditate on Sat. The entire sixth chapter uses the word Sat, Sat Brahma. Then it is to the credit of the sixth chapter that a very powerful concept of Vedanta, that is within the frame of reference of what we call Adhyaropa. Adhyaropa is deliberate superimposition. Then follows subsequent negation and realization of the truth. When you realize the supreme truth, there is nothing other than Brahma. But one notch below, in the so-called Avidya Bhumi, there seems to be such multiplicity, such plurality. And in the Prakarana Granthas, I trust many of you have studied Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, Viveka Chudamani, etc. Vedanta Sara. There are so many of them. In all of them it is said, upon Brahman, there takes place a certain duality, and then there takes place the emergence, the rising of Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. And these five initially are in very subtle form. They are called Tanmatras. Later they become gross. How do they become gross? A little of Akasha remains where it is, and half of it goes in four parts to Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. A little of, that is half of Vayu as though remains where it was. Other half goes to Akasha, Agni, Prithvi and Jala. So each element splits into two. Half remains where it is. The other half is distributed among the other four elements. That's called Panchikarana. You know, this Panchikarana of Prakarana Granthas, where did it get the whole source, the whole basic idea? It is in Chandogya Upanishad. But in Chandogya, the matter is made a bit simpler. Instead of talking of five elements, it talks only of three elements. Oh, then how come it became five? It's as simple as by mentioning three, five are implied. That is what is called the logic of implication. When you say Prime Minister Modi reached Frankfurt yesterday, Modi would not go alone. By saying Modi went, it is right away implied that a retinue, his advisor, his secretaries, the foreign minister, external affairs minister, whom you call, I guess, in the United States, the Secretary of State. We have one Jai Shankar, external affairs minister, Secretary of State in the US. So Jai Shankar typically would have gone probably by a separate plane, isn't it? I've heard that when it comes to very high level dignitaries, they try to go in different planes so that even if one of the planes crashes, so all at one go will not die. Others are there. Imagine all president, prime minister, ministers, etc. are in one plane and something, God forbid, happens. They together are gone. That's a different matter. When you say Modi went to Frankfurt, it is implied that a whole bunch of his advisors also went. Likewise, it is in the third khanda that we have a mention of not Panchikarana, but Trivratkarana. Three, which are very subtle to begin with, become three, but grossified. Apanchikrata Trini Bhutani turn into Panchikrata. Oh, sorry. Over there, Apanchikrata to Panchikrata. Here, a Trivratkrata going to Trivratkrata. That means the three of them were in their pure form, and after intermixing, you have three which are cross. All right, which are the three among the five? They are no other than the Sanskrit expression is a bit tickling. Tejobanna. Tejobanna. What is? Is it some new kind of bun? In bakeries, you get some bun. Tejoban. Tejobanna is an expression in Chandogya Upanishad. With a little knowledge of Sanskrit, you will know what it is. Tejaha, up, and Anna. Tejaha is fire, one of the five elements. Up is Jalatattva, another element. Anna stands for Prithvi. So Akasha and Vayu are implied. The next three, Tejaha, that is Agnihi, Up, that is Apaha, Annam, that is Prithvi, are explicitly mentioned. What is explicitly mentioned as implicit indications. So, if you are studying Panchikarana, if you are studying some Prakarana Grantha, please know the source is Chandogya Upanishad. Then let's go. What is that in the fourth section? Fourth section says the entire universe is nothing but Tejobanna. Tejaha, up, and Annam. That is Agni, Jala, and Prithvi. As an example, you look at the sun. The sun sometimes looks red. That is the component corresponding to fire. Then sometimes the fire looks white. That is what constitutes Aptattva, water. And sometimes during certain occasions, even the sun looks a bit dark. Yat Krishnam Tat Annasya. That represents the earth principle. So these are all manners of saying. You don't have to do hair splitting argument about it. This is a style of conveying that everything actually is made of the three elements, the language of Chandogya, made of five elements in the language of the expanded version of Vedanta. And what is interesting is when you see the sun or the moon, a tree or a rock, your own grandchild, or for that matter, your own body, to be nothing but the five elements in that deep contemplation. There is no more body, yours or the grandchild's. There is no more sun or moon. There is no more rock or river. Everywhere it's only five elements. Chandogya puts it in a very wonderful way. Apaga adityasya adityatvam. There is a statement. Apaga means vanished. The sunness of the sun has vanished. Sun is no more the sun. Then what is the sun? Five elements. What is the moon? Five elements. What is my grandchild? Five elements. Who am I? Five elements. Five elements alone. Then in the fifth khanda, one more punchline. Taking a simple instance of eating food, Uddalaka teaches his son Shvetaketu. The guru of this entire Shashta khanda is Uddalaka. Uddalaka says, my dear son, when you eat food, inside it splits into three parts. The gross, the middle that is relatively subtle, and the subtlest. He says, Annamasitam preda vidhiyate tasya yastavishto dhatu. Stavishta means grossest. That becomes excreta, gone, excreted out. Yo madhyamaha tanmansam. So flesh and fat, all that is what emerges from the middle portion in terms of the scale of gross and subtle. And yo anishtaha, in any food that we eat, a fruit or rice or wheat or meat eaters eat various kinds of non-veg food, doesn't matter. In all of them, in varying proportions, there is a gross part, there is a middle part, there is a very subtle part. And the punchline I may share on this very introductory bird's eye view treatment of chapter 6 is Yaha Anishta Tat Manaha. This has, friends, far reaching implications. What we eat shapes our mind. Therefore, in the tradition of Indian philosophy, eating the right food is very important. If you eat junk food, if you eat rajasic food, if you eat too spicy food, if you eat food with too much oil, you had it. Don't be surprised. Next day you get wicked ideas, criminal thoughts, or you go into depression, or you feel so lonely, etc. If you eat more and more sattvic food, where sattvic portion is larger than rajasic and tamasic, the sattvic component being larger, your mind becomes sattvic. And even amidst very many difficulties, you are able to maintain balance. Anishtam or anishtaha dhatuhu manaha. And he further reinforces this idea in the sixth khanda. Suppose to take some curd, yogurt, and churn it, then the subtlest part of it comes up as the butter. Drawing butter from yogurt or curd and giving that example. This chapter is full of metaphors. Dalaka says, in the food that you eat, the subtle part emerges as the mind. So that idea of mind is a product of what you eat is reinforced. And in the seventh khanda, I would say, Uddalaka conducts a workshop on Vedanta. He says to his son, my dear boy, do one thing. Don't eat anything except taking some water for 15 days. Rama Rama, the boy obediently fasts, not for 1, 2, or 3 days. For 15 days, he lives on water just to stay alive. At the end of 15 days, father says, my dear son, I have always admired your ability to recite Veda mantras. Please chant for me some Veda mantras. And the son tries to chant. He tries to chant Purusha Sukta. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishta Dashangulam, etc. He chanted now, but the boy could not chant. He could not even get the first word. Like many of us sometimes want to chant a shloka, and if we don't get the first word, we had it. Nothing comes. Any a time, I'm sure many of you are with me. If we get the first word, then it flows. I sometimes during my puja want to chant that famous shloka on Hanuman. And somehow, first word I don't get. Yes, what is that? Then I get the first word, buddhi. Buddhir balam yashodairyam, and so on. So many qualities that will come to us. Hanumat smaranad bhavet. By remembering Hanuman, you get these 8 qualities, 8 virtues in you. Buddhirbalam, Yashodairyam, and so on. So, our boy, Shwetaketu, doesn't remember anything. He is himself puzzled, embarrassed, feeling low. What happened? I used to be so good in Vedic chanting, but now nothing. The father smiles. I told you, mind is the result of food. You didn't eat food, the mind has become quiet. Now do one thing. Go to your mother. She has kept delicious food ready. Tomorrow. Eat very well. Have a good rest. Come in the evening. Shwetaketu goes and to his heart's content eats food. Feels sleepy. Then he comes again. This is my spicing up the topic. There is no mention of his eating very well and sleeping, etc. Maybe these brahmacharis never slept during the daytime. It is considered an unhealthy habit, especially for vatus, young brahmacharis. So, when Shwetaketu comes back, he chants Purusha Sutta, he chants Narayana Sutta, he chants Rudram Chamakam, he chants all sorts of Veda mantras without looking at any book, without looking up or down. The father smiles. This shows that it is food that continuously regenerates our ability to think. All this has a lot of implications. People with medical knowledge these days may connect everything in their own way, partly going so well with the Vedic wisdom, partly they may have something else to say. Now, I have already said, from the 8th Khanda, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 9 times. There are different metaphors, different lines of thought development, but the end of it all, it is said, dear Shwetaketu, there is something that pervades this entire universe. It is so subtle that no wonder majority neither understand nor accept when they are taught. Brahma is in everything. Brahman is all pervasive. What Brahman? Which Brahman? He asked. From that angle of view, vast majority of humanity are no different from Hiranyakashipu. When Prahlada said Vishnu is everywhere, Hiranyakashipu said, what Vishnu? Which Vishnu? What are you talking? Don't bluff like that, etc. And you know the story. Prahlada says God is everywhere. Is he there in this pillar? And when Prahlada says, of course, Mahavishnu is in this, Hiranyakashipu breaks that pillar and Mahavishnu comes out as Narasimha. We know that Purana story. In the Vedanta, when through Shravana and Manana, you penetrate into deeper levels of all that is outside or inside, as others or as you come upon Brahma Darshana. So, in the 8th Khanda, there is a paragraph at the end, the 7th mantra. That mantra repeats with slight change again and again. Saya Esha Anima. Anima means extremely anu, extremely subtle. Therefore, most people miss it out. 1 in a million sees Brahma. Sa Esha Anima Aitadatmamidagam Sarvam. Everything here, all this has this subtle truth as their self. Aitadatmamidam Sarvam Tat Satyam. Nothing else is true really. What is true is that subtle truth which we must exert, put in effort, strive to see. Therefore, we must attend Vedanta. We must study Vedanta. Tat Satyam, Sa Atma. That one truth which is everywhere is the self of all of us. The self of Brahma, the self of an ant crawling on the ground is one and only one. One truth is in all. Therefore, when you go to that depth, there is no high and low. There is no birth or death. There is no superiority or inferiority. There is no agony of failure nor the pride of success. You are Brahma Gnani, Brahma Darshi. Therefore, it is said, Saha Atma Tattvam Asi. That's a Mahavakya, great statement. Tattvam Asi Shweta Keto. Saya Shonima Aitadatmamidagam Sarvam Tatsatyam Sa Atma Tattvam Asi Shweta Keto. The boy is inspired, but he wants to know this in greater detail. He begs of his father, the teacher, Bhuya eva ma Bhagavan Vidnapayatu, teach me again. And the father takes a second example, how honeybees collect nectar from so many flowers, put them together, honey is made. And in the honey, there is everything. The nectar from this plant, the nectar from that different plant, no more know their distinction. Like that, in this whole universe, if you raise your vision, you will see a certain truth where divisions and differences have vanished. Again, at the end of the ninth kanda, Saya esho nimai tadapmidagam sarvam tat satyam sa atma tattvamasi shweta keto repeats. And the boy says, this is exalting. This is very inspiring. Tell me a little more. When we go into details, we know that it's not just for telling once more. Each section among the nine addresses a particular doubt. So at the end of nine sections, where nine times Tattvamasi is said, nine layers of doubts are eliminated, leaving Shvetaketu illumined. As rivers flow into the ocean, is the metaphor in the 10th kanda. At the end of it again, Saya Eshaha Anima Aitadatmamidam Sarvam Tat Satyam Sa Atma Tattvamasi Shvetaketu repeats. In the 11th kanda, it is said, take an axe and strike at a branch of this tree. The young boy takes an axe, he hits, and a branch breaks, and from the tree, certain sap or certain liquid starts flowing. And the father says, look, there is life in this tree. If this branch is totally separated and left over there, it dries off, it dies. Like that, all of us are up and active, running around. Our attention generally is on superficial things. What dress we were wearing, what kind of watch we are having on our wrist, what kind of vehicle we move in. These are all external things. What is truly valuable in life is the very core of our existence. We must know who we are at that level. We must not get distracted by what kind of dress I am wearing and what kind of dress she is wearing. Oh, I don't have that expensive dress with me in my wardrobe. Oh, oh, oh. Forget it. All that is secondary. We don't say it has no place. Let everything be in its place. Know yourself to be Satchidananda Atma. Like the very life in the tree, which is lent to the branch. If the branch is separated, it won't live for long, it gets dried up. There is the Atma Tattva in all of us. And further, there's an interesting experiment in 12. There, from a certain banyan tree, a fruit is brought. The father says, go get that fruit, break it. Bindi, bindi. Bindi means break it. Vedam kuru. Fruit is broken, tiny seeds, break it. And he, when he breaks even the tiny seeds, finally he says, I don't say anything more. And then father says, just like that, for ordinary eyes, Brahma will not be visible at all. Only through proper Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, guided by competent teachers, a certain understanding arises, where we see, ah, I thought there is nothing to this life, nothing to this universe. On the contrary, there is Brahma, there is the Supreme Brahman of infinite value, infinite significance. So that example is given. And I already said from 8th section to the 16th section, everyone has this expression. Sayaye Shonima, Aitadatmamidagam Sarvam, Tat Satyam Saatma, Tattvamasi Shvetaketo. The 12th section is no exception. The 13th talks about take some salt, says the father. Put it in water. Let it dissolve. Do you see? Do you see salt? Salt has completely dissolved. So you see, and this, no, there is only water. But take a little of water, that water, drink it, sip it. It is salty, you say. Likewise, it seems there is no God, no Brahman. But with proper Shravana Manana, it's like sipping and say, oh, there is salt. I thought it is plain water. No, it has salt. Just like that, I thought this universe has no God. It's all somebody's imagination. Or as Karl Marx or somebody said, religion is the opium of the masses. While it may have some superficial truth, anybody among the so-called masses has the good fortune of being guided properly spiritually will realize that this religion, this spirituality is what brings the highest meaning, life. Then we go to Trayodasha. Trayodasha is over. Chaturdasha is an interesting example. Somebody is caught hold of by thieves, blindfolded. He was from Gandhara Desha. Gandhara is today's Afghanistan. Kandahar is a city in Afghanistan even today. Kandahar, which is similar to Gandhara in our scriptures. So, just for illustration, somebody from Gandhara Desha was abducted by thieves, blindfolded, and after maybe robbing him of whatever valuables he had on his body, they leave him in some distant place and he is lost. And then he asks people, I was dropped here, I was left here, and I don't know where I have come. I can't recognize any road, any building, any place. Tell me how to get back to Gandhara. Then some good people say, oh, you are from Gandhara Desha. Go in this direction. Then he goes and he finds Gandhara Desha. Giving a very simple example like this, but it has great significance. Lot of issues arise from it. And the Upanishad itself is full of suggestions. Then there is Shankara's commentary. Amazing insights are given by him. What is the significance? You are like that person from Gandhara Desha, lost, not knowing what life is all about. Then Acharya, a guru comes in your life. A famous statement, Acharyavan Purusho Veda, comes in this section, namely the section number 14 of Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 6. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Study from a true Acharya. You will realize Brahma. 15th, last but one, there is an interesting episode. Someone has stolen something and we don't know who has stolen. So 5 suspects are caught hold of. And a heated axe, iron axe, is brought and everybody is asked to touch it. Liars, a liar is caught, his hand burns. The other four who are truthful, I did not steal. Because of the strength of truth, they don't get burnt. How that can happen is a different issue, but the idea is truthful person is protected by truth itself. Truth is our savior. Truth sets us free. And over there also, what is the truth? On the highest plane, Atma. Sa Atma Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. Last but not the least, it is said, that 15 was about a dying man. And in that case, it is said, one by one, his faculties merge into a subtler one. Finally, there is quietude and Sat Brahma is to be seen. The last section talks about that thief being caught through a red hot iron axe. That's the example in the 16th Kanda. So, in this overview, you got a few points, and let me assure you, the mantras themselves and Adi Shankara's commentaries give to us unbelievably great amount of Vedantic understanding. It's a treat to study Shankara's Bhashya on Chandogya, and you may skip some portion, certain portions where he has made vital remarks can be of great help to us. So in the next class, next Friday, we'll take selected mantras from the 6th chapter. And after maybe 10 classes, we will go to the 7th chapter, some 10 mantras. We'll go to the 8th chapter for some 10 mantras. So like we did with the other Upanishad, something like 30 selected mantras we'll take and some selected lines from Adi Shankara's commentary, all that can help us get clear. We may imagine that we have understood, but not quite. Oh, with this, the talk is completed. I will now take up some questions. There is greetings, Pranam.